All right, welcome to the Sci-Fi Express Lane. Jeff Carroll. Probably didn't do anything all of March. Conventions, doctor's appointments, gotta maintain my health. Just a lot going on. Had the biggest C2E2 was the biggest convention I've ever been to, and I survived, did good, made some money, turned the second highest profit that I made at a comic book convention. And before that, I got selected from the waiting list at MegaCon, and that pulled in my fourth highest, but it's expensive, so the profits were low. It's just I covered my expenses, so I got some strategies to make money at the next one. But finally got a chance, and I know I'm late. It's better late than never, though. I actually got a first printing, so I'm good. I'm in that community. So I got the first printing of the new history of DC, the new history of the DC universe, the Dakota incident. This is the one everybody's been talking about. It's the one that kind of was a big, I don't say divide, but a big conversation point for indie black creators. And I make comic books. I've got over 20 something comics. So it is what it is. I'm in the conversation. I might not make the comics or superhero comics like Static Shock, Milestone is Icon and Hardware and Rocket. But I got comic books, I'm in the shelves, I'm at the conventions. Like I said, I went to C2E2, turned a profit, covered my plane ticket, hotel, and the booth fee, right? So that's a major accomplishment. I used to go for years. I've been doing I made my first comic book in 2008 with Monty the Killer. And, I've been doing these small conventions. So it took a while to be able to go to a place and pay for all of those things and turn a profit. I didn't do that for years, yo. Granted, I took about 12 years off from making comics and started doing books, but I wasn't turning a profit like this. So this is new. It's me, really, that's the change. But let me get into this Dakota incident. One, it was 3 writers, and I go in for the writers. I mean, I love illustrators, but the stories are the ones that I'm really looking at. So of course, Joseph Illich, Stephanie Williams, and Morgan Hampton, as well as Nicholas Draper Ivy, all did portions of the story. Number one, I would have liked to have had them credited in the stories that were coming. I mean, it's really, I'm not that much of a comic book reader to have read a comic book where 4 writers or 3 writers write the same story, because really it was so fluid, maybe because it had the same editor, that I couldn't really distinguish the difference. But I might have to Google a podcast or interview where it talks about each one of them writing their section of the story. But it read fluid. I thought it was great. Stephanie Williams is like now one of my top writers. She's up there with Rodney Barnes and David Walker in terms of the writers that I like of comic books, and she's got a volume. I just finished Roots of Madness, so when I get time, I'm going to do a review of like Roots of Madness. So first, that threw me, but I was like, well, why don't they do 3? I thought it was going to be another one. I thought this was the Joe Illich one, and it was going to be the Stephanie Williams one coming next. There ain't nobody speaking on that, because all these comic book people already knew exactly what was going on, and I don't know what I don't know what I'm reading. I don't know what I'm in for. So I'm the different guy. But I'm going to mention that because it caught me off guard. So let's dig into the story. Let me dig into the story. First, this is a power play move story, right? So Milestone is our big black indie comic characters universe. It's all black characters, it's written by black people, and it was published and produced by black people. The team kind of broke up, and they got with DC, which was a big step, but they were still a separate universe. DC took them under their wing, and then they started releasing their titles, but it was under DC's control. And there was elements of the stories that felt like they would have been different if they would have just been Milestone produced and released, okay? Not getting into the specifics because there's different ones. I know I bought some Static Shocks. It felt different than the Milestone Static Shocks, which deserved their own review. I read the Icon and Rocket series. Felt a little different. I actually submitted a story for Icon and Rocket. I don't know. My story even felt different. I was, right into the DC Milestone universe as opposed to the Milestone universe. And I don't even know if Icon got his own, Icon Hardware got his own series under DC, but it felt like they was never really able to do their thing, and of course, some of the writers, the team broke up, but it would have been interesting to see if Milestone would have stayed independent. Team did whatever they did, right? Dwayne McDuffie went and wrote and produced maybe a Static Shock with DC. Maybe they would have structured the deal different. But what if Milestone hadn't broke up and they brought in new writers? Now, I know it was like a big gap between when they were big, which was the 90s and the early 2000s. I don't know when they signed their deal with DC, but it would have been interesting to see if they could have withstood that 10-year, 15-year period before, like, black writers. Like, there's some big black writers now. Of course, Rodney Barnes and David Walker and Stephanie, they're the 2000s, but there, there's a whole lot of other writers that's coming up that maybe if we were given the opportunity, I'm going to throw myself in there, given the opportunity, we could have revitalized the Milestone universe with the infusion of some of our own stories and ideas. That would be a really big black company to do that. But things happen the way they happen. All right. So fast forward, we're dealing with now. So now the move is in the world where there's a lot of black independent comics, superheroes, myself, dudes is making it at these conventions. We are selling books, our stories are succeeding, and Marvel and DC are struggling to come out with black characters that really stick. They're Falcons, they're War Machines, Black Lightnings. They don't have the glue that the Static Shock and the Milestone seems like they had. So they was like, let's bring Milestone characters into the DC universe. And this is the Dakota incident, how they do it, right? And I like how they did it. It reminded me of The Boys. Now, mind you, I don't read Superman, Batman, stories to know if they've ever done a story with tested mutants and government and politics. I know Lex Luthor is the president in the DC universe and how that works, but this felt like almost an X-Men alternative story where the government is trying to squash, it felt like a Marvel story. The government was trying to squash a independent mutant outbreak, almost like Captain America and Iron Man going up against each other. And mind you, I'm from strongly, heavily influenced from the movies. So some of these stories have played out in comic books. I don't know. So I'm just giving you, I'm footnoting and letting you know what my who I am as a reader and what my knowledge base is. I'm not a DC, Marvel, superhero expert. I am a writer. I'm in the community, but I'm not one of those guys. You know, I'm not telling you. In book 5, and when they introduced Icon, nah, I don't know that. You know, save that for the comic book dudes. But I will give you my opinion. It reminded me of Power, or I think it was Black, the one with a kid, by Black Mass Comics. The kid had his hands up, and the story was him running from the government after he escaped from a testing facility. It had a little bit of that. It had a little bit of I won't say Waco, Texas, but in this climate of ice, it felt a little bit like let's contain this city and lock them down. The DC characters that they brought in, the Suicide Squad, I forgot, I don't think it was Suicide Squad, but they brought in the squad of superheroes. It felt like they felt it was mutants, but Icon and Static, and of course, I think Hardware is going to be a conspiracy theorist. They felt it was black, you know, it felt it was a black personal story, you know, or not story, an act, you know. But the DC characters, Lex Luthor, Homegirl, who runs the Suicide Squad, there was a lot of black people in the government, so they don't feel it's that. But ultimately, it's all black characters. So to me, it was a challenge from the writers. Bravo to them to keep the characters of Milestone on the black-white level and blend it to a DC universe that really never dealt with black-white. I mean, I know I just read that Batman where he's squashing out the Ku Klux Klan, but that is corny. It's not really the United States. It was an outlier, absolute Batman. It was, to me, corny. I've seen people take on the Ku Klux Klan. I've written it a little bit in my stories, you know, but it wasn't as big of a deal. It wasn't like racism was a big factor. That permeated everything, like, you know, in the real world. So that happened. What is my feeling about it? I think the characters are alive. I'm happy that Icon and Static Shock and Hardware and Rocket and other characters are still getting stories. But I think it feels like they're different, and they still have to struggle with, are they going to be able to be black? How are they going to write their blackness into this new universe? What is their, you know, because other black indie characters, like I have a character named Super Black. What I'm writing for him is probably something that I think the old Icon would appreciate. You know what I'm saying? The Milestone Icon would appreciate. Dealing with racism. Is he going to, are they going to have that? I don't know. Would my Super Black meet Hardware and shake hands with him like the old Milestone character would? What does it mean for black comics or black indie comics? I don't think it means anything. Heck, man, it was showing us what they did. Bravo to them. They got down with DC. Otherwise, they could have died. A lot of black comic book companies that were competitors with them stopped making their comics, you know, not dead per se, but, you know, you had, Tribe, which to me never reached its full potential. You had, what's the other one that, oh God, I can't think. Guy is the writer, my man Guy. Oh my God, I can't remember. But that comic also didn't reach their full multi-story, future story potential. So Milestone reached a level that we haven't seen before. It's not dead. I don't think it's a bad thing. Many of us are writing stories that, look, there's black writers that write white characters just to make it. So writing something pro-black is a very hard thing to do and to be successful at it. And to write it as pro-black as hardware, where he's a daggone conspiracy theorist. It's very hard. So I ain't going to put no pressure on them because I know what it's like because I'm in that writing sphere. So I just look at it and I'm studying it. It doesn't mess up things for me. My lane is still open. The lane of black indie creators is still open, and we're gonna do our thing. So I'm celebrating it. And I don't know all of what other people said. The comic community. I know Brandon Easton did a big thing on the community supporting black comics. Listen, black people are not monolithic. I just came from C2E2. That people was like they get the amount of people that they get in New York Comic Con, but the people in New York Comic Con support black comics different. It is what it is. My goal is to find out what comics they like and the stories they like and write them and get them to read them. All right. So for people that look at me and walk around my table, there's a whole nother group of people that come to my table and be like, we was looking for black comics. So I think at some point it's a wash. Anyway, that's it. So like, subscribe, share, comment. I'm going to do a review of, Wonder Man and Roots of Madness. Those are the next ones. All right. Peace. Sci-Fi Express Lane, Jeff Carroll out.